Can you say something about the situation on gender identity in your country? Is there self-ID, etc.?
Currently, there is no approved gender ID law in Peru. We have a draft that was presented to be discussed in the Congress in November of 2016 by a left party called Frente Amplio and sponsored by the Trans Peru Network. That it's one of the organizations that is lobbying the trans agenda. And there is two congresswomen behind this draft, Indira Wilka and Marisa Glave, who practically copy-paste the Yogyakarta principles in order to make up this bill. This draft is centered on gender identity, which is understood as the internal and individual experience of gender. So you can see that the circular reasoning and also the lack of feminist perspective. We, feminists, know that gender is the same as sexual stereotypes. And gender is a tool in patriarchal societies as the Peruvian, but seems like nobody else realized it. And regarding this topic, we have to ask who or which companies are profiting from this. As a tiny context, I will like you to know a little more about Peru, because we are not just a country with the best gastronomy and the best places to sports or Machu Picchu as a symbol of greatness. No. From a feminist perspective, we are a country where the women's sex-based rights are being postponed many times during our Republican history. Peruvian women own the right to vote, for instance, in 1956, and was until 1979 that all women were able to vote, because the new legislation allowed at that time that also illiterate women can vote. And in a country that 2/3 of the illiterate population are women, until now, 2020, this is a good example how we are victim of the sexual stereotypes of this conservative society. During quarantine, the number of rape did not drop, and feminicide neither. So we are talking that every hour, 3 women are raped in Peru. This number is the reported cases, by the way. And in average, 15 feminicides occur per month. So it's like 2 every 2 days. Well, Peruvian men rape girls and teens more often. And the Catholic Church claimed to these pregnancies to be on term for girls of 10 or 12 years old without rights to abortion. And where the legislation this is a country where the legislation allows girls to be married at 16 years old. This is by law. Since the quarantine started, 900 women are reported missing on the country. That this is, my country is sadly in the top 3 of sex tourism on the region, and where prostitution is understood as the real options only for women. During 1996 and 2001, at least 314,506 women were forced to be sterilized because of the state policy of human dictatorship to eradicate poverty in rural zones in my country. And those women, neither their families found until now justice from the state. So yes, the gender ID law is not approved in Peru. The law has not been debated in the Congress yet, despite the fact that the concept of gender identity is being consolidated by many public and private institutions on daily basis. Nor has there been a debate with feminist organizations that are denouncing the danger that this law will imply for women and how it will violate their rights based on sex. But on daily basis, we see how it's more accepted that the women's sex-based rights. It is currently possible for transgender people to change their name and sex on the ID to a civil judicial process, since a ruling by the Constitutional Court that pathologized transsexualism and thus lifting the binding ban and the requirement for a diagnosis of gender dysphoria. Because as we already talked several times in these webinars, men's sexual rights are the priority for all states all over the world.